Good morning, everyone. My name is Genevieve Shorter, and I'm your host today for today's segment, Raise the Age, Awareness and Activism. Here with me today, I have Jean-Pierre Lacour, the Deputy Director of the Community Association of Progressive Dominicans. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we're just going to dive right in with today's segment. We're talking about Raise the Age, a program or campaign that is looking towards seeing youths of ages 16 to 18 are not placed in adult prisons or tried as adults, because this is negatively affecting their futures when they're incarcerated, and then when they come out they can't get loans, they can't go to school, they can't get a job, things of that nature.
Well, one of the things that we should also be focusing on too is not so much just the legal aspect of it, right? A lot of it does have to come down to the type of laws and type of policies that are put in play and the type of incarceration reasons that are happening for young people.
Right.
Disproportionately, we know that most of the young people that are in jails in New York State, including also North Carolina, which is, I know, one of the other states that's become part of the initiative, is that disproportionately African American Hispanics make up a larger population of people that are incarcerated. But we also have to deal with the emotional part of this too. It's not just putting them in adult institutions, which basically is a disservice to these children who are young people. But studies have also proven that the psychological effect that affects these young people while they're incarcerated in adult prisons damages who they are. We already know that the brain itself for a youth or a child far differs than an adult. We know that there's policies out there now. There's children that are being charged as adults as young as 13 years old. And cognitively, young people don't have the ability to understand the focus when they're making decisions. So yes, you quoted the facts of like when they come out of jail. What is happening with them as far as the opportunities that are afforded to them. By that time, most of these young people who have been impacted in jail mentally come back and they are recidivists because, again, they have been inundated by the behavior that has been pushed on them. They have already seen themselves as not a productive part of society.
Now, can you give our viewers an understanding what recidivism is?
Recidivism is that when you incarcerate someone, they come out, their tendencies are that they're going to commit more crimes. Studies also have proven that children that are put in these institutions that come out normally will commit more heinous crimes when they come out. You can take a person who goes in after for the 3-strike rule, who's gone in under misdemeanors and then come out and then now they're committing felonies. So there's an elevation of the expectation that based on how we rehabilitate our young people.
Okay. Now, in 2011, we had 43,093 total arrests of 16 and 17-year-olds, and then that dropped to 27,281 arrests in 2015, and this is all according to the Division of Criminal Justice. Do you know of anything or seen anything recently that may have led to this change?
Well, trends, for example. We talked about trends, I know before we got on our segment today, we talked about trends that are happening in our communities, right? Again, you look at the type of crimes and type of things that are happening in regards to what's happening in our community, and then the type of incarcerations, right? That's a huge factor in some of these number changes, right? It's not as if sometimes you think, okay, the numbers are dropping for certain reasons. It's just that some people are being charged at higher levels in other crimes. So the crimes may be changing, and also their incarceration may be changing. So we also look at what's happening right now with Barack Obama's push to take away what I call bogus incarcerations on drug charges, for example, and that's big too because all of a sudden now police, for example, are no longer you're not being charged for sometimes these misdemeanors or Class C misdemeanors anymore. Now you're seeing that some of those trends also change based on those numbers as well.
Okay. And have you particularly found anything to be interesting with these trends and the awareness that's going on within communities or just programs?
I think that's what you said is important. I think also the activism within our communities too, to address some of the concerns that are happening. I think sometimes we don't get a lot of the feedback as much as we should on community developing programs that are addressing issues in our communities that affect our young people of color specifically. And I think that's an issue. There are a lot of nonprofit, even for-profit businesses out there that are now addressing some of these concerns, which, you know, your initiative here today to speak about is a perfect example of that. I think there's a lot more pressure from either our community clergies to community-based organizations and programs, educational programs that are being serviced in the communities too. I think there are percentages of outreach that are affecting our community. I just don't think that our unfortunate media is not allowing us to see that some of these changes that are happening. And I think that people believe that the voices are not out there, but the voices are out there to start helping a lot of our young people understand the circumstances and the things that are happening within their communities.
So in a world of, I guess, Kim Kardashians and Kanye West, what do we need to do as a society or as a community to ensure that these voices are heard?
Well, there's a lot of things that I look at, right? You know, and it's not about identifying Kim Kardashian or Kanye West in this country. They're only going to be the individuals that basically we place on the platform. We also need to start looking at our educational system as a way that we support developing the individual. It's not an issue about developing a Kanye West or a Kim Kardashian, because I'm quite sure that if you look at them, you know, our young generation looks at them and aspires to want to be them because this is the only platform they're providing. But if we're giving education that allows young people to see that there are something deeper in who these individuals are from their business side of it or from their education or knowledge, what happens is that person changes. We look at the stories of like Jay-Z and we look at P. Diddy and people like that. But these are business individuals who have business savvy and business knowledge and understand the culture of handling themselves in the society. Our educational system has to start addressing those concerns first. We need to start looking at how we're educating our young people and how we're preparing them so that they're not just putting a social platform together with no content.
Now, you touched upon education as something of interest to me because we, have talked about different issues that exist within the education system. And what do you think about, school to prison pipeline and the, I guess, zero tolerance policies that are placed in some schools, especially in urban areas?
We need to relook at this whole issue of zero tolerance too. I think that's another thing. We need to go back to the drawing board and start looking at what is affecting this context and this conversation about zero tolerance. This prison, school to prison pipeline foundation comes from the attitudes that we have within our school systems, and it does indicatively look at the type of students that we deal with as far as the type of schools the kids are going to and also the culture in those environments that these schools exist in. It doesn't happen in all schools and it doesn't happen in all communities. We tend to think that it does, but it doesn't. And again, another issue is not to make it about a racial context, but it is also a foundation that happens within our communities more disproportionately in Black and Hispanic communities, especially in school systems that happening in urban communities where we see a disproportionate number of schools, for example, also closing. So there's a lot of context in that conversation too. We also know that there's a conversation about a building of more prison institutions. So we don't have an infrastructure that's supporting development in our community.
So when you have schools closing, opportunities for them decreasing, but an increase in, juvenile detention centers and jails being built, especially a lot more so in upstate New York, which I've noticed because, my school's upstate New York. We have several jails near our campus, so it's just really prevalent throughout, my life.
I think that, the context of the conversation also should look at the amount of money that's going into the taxpayer dollar that builds prison systems. We notice that there's a strong correlation based on taxes that we pay for when it comes to our institutions, right? And the proof is out there that shows that if we build educational development, the level of incarceration changes as well. The number comes down. So we have to start asking the question of why is there such a need? There's a lot of money to be made in the prison system. And we do have to look at the racial context and makeup of our prison system.
Okay. And I have another statistic that we have right now from the Juvenile Justice Info Exchange, and it's out of the 100,000 youth in a study, I guess you could say, 336 are confined in prisons, but then 70,000 are actually in prisons in the U.S., just in the U.S. in general. What can we say about initiatives that other states are taking besides, Raise the Age, New York, and other campaigns?
Well, I think that sometimes that most people sometimes understand this. They understand what affects their dollar. We noticed that in states like Rhode Island, for example, when they changed the Raise the Age kind of policies, they have saved the state almost $1.2 to $2.3 million in creating a vehicle for kids to go into youth detention centers as a rehabilitation, as opposed to incarceration. So the numbers really don't lie when it comes to addressing the needs of our community and the needs of the children that we're putting in jail. Again, I think if we now I think the big issue is privatization of our prison systems as well. So I think there's a reason that when we think about privatization, there's money to be made. It's a correlation between profit and nonprofit, for example. For profit is basically to make dollars. So when you think privatization of the jail systems, for them, they're benefiting off the tax dollar.
Yeah. Okay. When you talk about the tax dollar and education and having schools being defunded or being affected or being even closed, do you think that there's an issue with having schools being funded by property taxes?
Well, you look at the communities that schools are located, from the suburbs or to the rural areas, where a lot of the funding within the community that supports the educational system, it's already existing, right? When we look at urban situations, it's more based on the levy of the tax dollar. Again, it's a matter of the community. You can have this debate with a lot of people that if I live in a community where I'm paying a higher rate of taxes in my community on property taxes to help pay for education when I don't have children in the school, it's a balanced system that you have to find. But we do find that those kind of institutions, those schools in those communities, tend to have stronger educational programming. I'm not saying that we should sit there and tax more people so we can build better schools. But what I'm saying is that there's a culpability in the relationship with people who have, when they look at where their tax dollars are going, as opposed to just being blindly taxed and not understanding where all the money is definitely going.
Okay, thank you so much for
You're
coming
welcome.
in, JP. This has been really enlightening experience and great to talk about with people. We have two different websites that you can go to find out more information about this cause: raisetheageny.com and thecorrectionalassociation.org. You can go to both websites to find out more about this cause, how you can get involved, and how you can stay aware of the issues that you are faced with here in New York. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.